we did have a couple people that had announced that they weren't going to make it tonight, and Brian, like I told you, we had already canceled this meeting back in June, but now we brought it back to life here. So Mark, if you want to go ahead and start the video taping and.
Yep, we're recording.
All right, we're good. So, well, good evening, everybody. I'm Rob Walker. This is the July Reston Planning and Zoning meeting. And as I said, looks like we have at least a quorum, and there's a couple more people going to be added on here shortly. Really, we just have the one application tonight. We have the South Lakes Village Center. I think most of you might know by now, actually, both banks at the South Lakes Village Center have become vacant. I was sorry to see Truist be the last one to go, and but I think we're here on the other bank site tonight to talk about the potential for that to go towards some type of fast food restaurant with the drive-through. So with that, Brian, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it right over to you and your team, and let's go ahead and hear from you, and then we'll go back to the committee for comments.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, sir. We have a fairly brief presentation, and then we can certainly have comments and discussion. As you know, I'm Brian Winterhalter with DLA. Howie Ito in our office is joining as well, and she'll be running through the presentation. And then we have Jason Winans from Chevy Chase Land Company, which is the owner of the South Lakes Village Center, on the line as well. So Howie, why don't you, and then we'll turn to questions after the presentation.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here this evening. And again, Rob, thank you so much for calling this meeting, though it was previously canceled. We really appreciate your time this evening, and hopefully we can get through this quickly. So the South Lake Village Shopping Center, sorry, this won't work. Here is a context map of the site. As shown, the site is located south of Sunrise Valley Drive, north of Harbor Court, east of Lake Thorough and Lake Port Way, and west of South Lakes Drive. The South Lakes Village Shopping Center is approximately 9.9 acres. It is currently developed with approximately 109,000 square feet of shopping center use. The portion of the property subject to the site is shown here in blue. It's approximately 0.74 acres, less than an acre of the overall shopping center. And as you had mentioned, Rob, it's currently developed with a drive-through bank, although that bank is now vacant. Under the zoning ordinance, the site is zoned PRC, Planned Residential Community. The PRC zoning district's primary goal is to allow for developments of a planned communities that offer a diverse range of housing types, employment, and commercial services. We believe that the establishment of a fast food restaurant at this location is consistent with the zoning ordinance and complements the existing uses at the site and the neighboring properties around the village center. A drive-through restaurant, fast food restaurant, requires a special exception approval under the zoning ordinance when located within the PRC zoning district. Under the Reston Comprehensive Plan, South Lakes is planned for Village Center, is currently developed as a Village Center, and under the plan, the recommendation for the Village Center is are for neighboring services, retail, and service uses up to 0.25 FAR, integrated with several accessory and institutional uses. The existing residential areas located here to the west and to the east of the shopping center are sorry, my apologies. The red is the non-residential South Lakes Shopping Center, and then the blue shows the existing residential area surrounding the South Lakes Village Shopping Center, but are also part of the Village Center designation under the comprehensive plan. Currently, there are no redevelopment plans for this Village Center as stated in the comprehensive plan. The initial approvals for the site occurred on October 1st, 1982. In October 1983, the board approved special exception application for a drive-in bank facility where that pad of the site is located. Since the approval of the special exception for the bank, the board has approved several special exceptions for fast food restaurants within the South Lakes Village Shopping Center, though it's my understanding that there isn't an approval for a drive-through restaurant, which is why we're here today seeking that approval. As mentioned before, the former Truist building has been vacant since January 2021, so approximately 3.5 years. Here is a image of the existing conditions of the property. As you can see, this is the vacant drive-through bank that has been unoccupied, not occupied since January 2021. The applicant proposes a special exception to convert the drive-through bank into a drive-through fast food restaurant. Here is an illustrative plan of the proposed development. As you can see here, the drive-through fast food restaurant would be in the same location as the bank. We're not proposing any structural changes to the bank itself, but we have made several commitments to landscaping and pedestrian facilities in response to comments that we've received from county staff. Here is a short description of what's proposed. It's pretty standard for most fast food drive-through facilities or restaurants. The applicant is proposing a 1,675 feet fast food restaurant. The hours of operations are pretty standard. This includes time for employees to come and go, so 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Estimated number of patrons, approximately 750. As mentioned previously, the restaurant would serve the neighboring residential communities as well as visitors of the shopping center. And there are no significant changes proposed to the existing structure, which is compatible with the overall village center. With respect to traffic considerations, the proposed use would generate 70 trips during AM peak hours and 122 trips during PM peak hours, which is approximately 54 additional trips during the AM peak hours and 86 additional trips during the PM peak hours when compared to the existing drive-through bank. As you can imagine, a fast food restaurant would require a few more trips than a drive-through bank, though not significant enough to warrant a full traffic impact analysis. This is an illustrative of the additional landscaping that the applicant has committed to with this application. Along South Lakes Drive, you can see here there is substantial landscaping that the applicant has now committed to, as well as along here. The applicant cannot place additional landscaping in this area because it impacts site distance. So what we've committed to is ground cover, but we've added all this additional landscaping in addition to the existing landscaping along the northern portion of the site. And as you can see here, along Harbor Court. In addition to additional further landscaping, the applicant has committed to pedestrian facilities on the site to ensure that there is continuous pedestrian circulations along the village center. There's, as you can see here, a sidewalk that the applicant has committed to construct along the site's eastern portion. And as you can see here, the applicant has committed to several crosswalks along the property to ensure that there is a continuous pedestrian circulation through the site and along all the way to the village center. Here is a better representation of what the applicant envisions in terms of pedestrian circulation. Individuals coming from the Red Loop Trail down here can cross, go up the sidewalk, cross again, and continue their way through the site to get to the general shopping center. There's an existing sidewalk where this green arrow is, so they can come along this way as well, cross and get to the village center. And then we've also added several pedestrian connections and crosswalks here for pedestrians to access the shopping center. In addition to the more narrow look of pedestrian circulation, we took a broader look to see what the connection looks like for pedestrians coming out of the residential area down here. There is an existing pedestrian pathway along Twin Branches Road that pedestrians can come along. Cross here, there's a crosswalk that lets them get to the shopping center from this area. There's also a sidewalk along South Lakes Drive here, and then there's a pedestrian connection along the village center that allows them to come in this way. And then, as mentioned in the previous slide, the applicant is committed to provide crosswalks along Harbor Court to ensure that anyone coming from this portion along Lake Thorough can get into the shopping center. In addition to the landscaping and pedestrian commitments, the applicant has also committed to providing EV charging stations in the village center. Additional landscaping will be native to the Mid-Atlantic region and non-invasive. And at the time of site plan submission, the applicant will provide an invasive species management narrative for review and approval by FCON. And that is all for the presentation. So please let us know if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Could you summarize, I guess, what you sent out to the committee? Because I want to make sure everybody received what you intended.
I sent the statement of justification, which summarizes the proposed application, the special exception plat that shows the development plan for the site, and for particularly the fast food restaurants and the pedestrian and landscaping commitments. And I also sent development conditions that outline the EV charging stations, the native plantings, and invasive species management.
All right. I'm going to go to the committee for some questions. I just want to say right off the bat that when we get to the voting point, whether it's tonight or some other night, I have to recuse myself because Chevy Chase Bank is a client of ours. But so let me go right to questions. Let me start with Lynn, and then we'll go to Katie.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you. I'm sorry, is your name pronounced Adeo?
Chloe.
Okay. So great presentation. Thank you so much. And Brian, thank you. Good to see you again. I've got a couple of questions. On your slide number 5, you had mentioned the 2019 comprehensive plan. We actually have an adopted new comprehensive plan that was adopted on September 13, 2023. So I would hope that you would update your presentation to reflect the latest comprehensive plan, the 2023 Reston comprehensive plan. I don't know that there were any changes that were made, but just for argument's sake, let's make sure we're up to date. My other question is, do we know which fast food chain is interested in this site? And the reason that I ask is that there are certain fast food franchises that do much better than others. For instance, Chick-fil-A in the Reston area, many of them have 2 drive-through lanes. So I didn't know if that was a Chick-fil-A site designation, but I'm curious as to who the applicant is in terms of the fast food operation. And those are my questions.
Thank you, Lynn. To answer your first question, I totally understand there's a new Reston comp plan. I should have noted earlier in my presentation that this application was filed almost 2 years ago. So we're under the impression that we fall under the previous comp plan. However, the language hasn't changed much. So I did grab this image from the the new comp plan that was adopted in 2023. This language is pretty consistent with what was in the previous Reston comp plan as well. To answer your second question, we do not have a tenant yet. That is something that is being worked out in the background. We don't have an idea of who the tenant will be, but we understand that there's a concern with the traffic that is related to who the tenant is. And if we had that information, we'd be more than happy to provide it, but we just don't.
So how do you know that it's a fast food interest?
Goal is to
So-
turn the site. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Helen, I'll jump in. I mean,
Brian.
part of hi. Part of what the ownership, and Jason, who's on, can speak to this more directly, but part of what the ownership is doing is after the bank use vacated the site and there wasn't interest from many other banks, we're trying to change the permissions to allow a drive-through restaurant use so that we could have a better marketing effort, because we don't, we haven't gotten any interest in a bank. So that's sort of where we are right
Okay.
now.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Sure. And we have, for what it's worth, we have worked through, to your point about the number of cars and the stacking spaces. We are adding stacking spaces for the drive-through restaurant use that are more than would be required for the bank use. So we're making some modifications, fairly minor, but we are making some modifications to the site to account for some of those types of things and the difference between the two uses.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, let's go to Katie.
Hi, good evening. Hey, thanks for the presentation. South Lakes Village is where I shop. I don't live very far away from it. So selfishly, I would love for there to be a Chick-fil-A like that I could walk to. But on the topic of maybe it's a Chick-fil-A, maybe it isn't, South Lakes Village is a hassle to get in and out of with no fast food place in there. So I was going to say, and I have no idea, but I would make a suggestion that you have at least an exit kind of on that side. I guess that might be like the north side closest to the gas station, just to get everybody back out onto South Lakes Drive, because to come back into the shopping center on a light day is really difficult to navigate getting out of the shopping center at that stop sign. It's not on your picture, but on the stop sign right there past the gas station, right before the light. So I just think if you have an exit coming out onto South Lakes, just to get everybody out of the drive-through, out of the shopping center, because otherwise it really will be a traffic nightmare. Even if it wasn't a Chick-fil-A, even if it was some not very well attended place, it would still just be a mess. So that would be my only suggestion.
And just to make sure I follow you, do
Yeah.
you mean like just north of the existing building to have an exit that just comes straight out onto South Lakes from the site?
And I used to bank at that Truist, and so there are 2 lanes there anyway. There was like a lane for like to talk to the teller, and then like the lane for deposit only. But just somehow, if you could just get the people back onto South Lakes, because otherwise, I don't know how you're going to get people out of the shopping center after they go for lunch. It's just going to be a traffic nightmare inside the center.
So we hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
We can look at whether that would be feasible and whether that'd be feasible with the county and with VDOT.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
frankly, we
it would
hadn't
be,
considered that.
yeah, it would be, I mean, just go to the shopping center, someday, whatever, just go over there and you'll just see it's such a cluster right there trying to get out. It's like not very well thought out, but yeah, a separate exit. Maybe I wouldn't do an entrance because I think you want people to kind of get in and loop around, but I think an exit directly out would be great. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Katie. Let's go to Tammy, then on to John.
Thank you so much. I have a question about some of your answers on our committee questionnaire that you filled out. Number 4, organizations and associations, design review. You have that you're not planning to go to the RA design review. I believe that South Lakes Shopping Center requires DRB approval. And of course, if you don't know the client, you wouldn't be able to spec logos and colors, etc. But I believe
Right.
you're required to go through the DRB process. And I would caution you to find out if you are. I think you are, because DRB was very involved with the little park on the lake in front of Red's Table. So I think you are, but I don't know 100%, but please check that out.
Yeah, Tammy, I can answer that question, which is we are, the whole village center is subject to the DRB review process. And given the nature of the fairly minimal nature of the changes that we're proposing for some of the site circulation, adding stacking spaces, adding landscaping, and not changing the building itself really, we figured that we would go to the DRB as we got further into this process. So we know we have to go, but we also realized, to what you noted, that it probably would make more sense to go once we have a tenant identified and we can go and show not only the plans, but also the signage for the tenant to the DRB, which we will need to do. And until we have a tenant, it kind of, we can't really do that.
Okay, so we will change that from not planned to
Yes.
yes.
That
Okay.
was meant to be not planned at right now, but we know we need to go.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I thought I was like, what? I know Brian knows better.
No, that's my mistake. Sorry.
Okay. And as far as a probable possible tenant, please check Checkers. They are a local or a not so huge franchise there in Manassas. They would do well there. Thank you so much. I appreciate your presentation.
Tammy.
Thanks, Tammy. Let's go to John, then we'll go to either David or Sue.
Thanks, Rob. So full disclosure, Kimley-Horn actually designed the park by the lake a number of years ago, but we have worked with the Chevy Chase in a couple of years, so I don't see any conflicts unless someone else disagrees. If you could go to the site plan real quick, Howie. Good evening, Brian and Howie, by the way.
Nice to see you, John.
As you know, probably, and as Katie mentioned, it's a very busy center. Lots of kids from school go here, and lots of folks walking around and driving all the time. I think we all agree it'd be great to see this redeveloped and not have boarded up windows. So that's great. But there are traffic concerns, at the center, and I think my opinion is you'd have a hard time getting an actual exit onto South Lakes. But something to consider, because that entrance right at Starbucks is really congested and not always safe right there. One thing to consider, instead of exiting all the drive-through folks out to that spot, maybe you make that an in only. So you control the exiting at that spot, because that's your real trouble spot. Because if you can bring them around to that more southerly exit, you can pop people out onto South Lakes a lot easier. Just an idea. I haven't analyzed it or done any kind of traffic study or anything, but that particular intersection with Starbucks and the gas station and everything is very troublesome and busy. So I think you'd have a problem there. To their point about the user, I think you need 11 spaces in Fairfax County for a standard drive-through, but many of them require much more. I think, as you know, Chick-fil-A is 20 plus in most cases. So if you had a Chick-fil-A here, you'd be extended into that drive aisle and right at Starbucks, and you'd have even a bigger problem. So I do think the user is relevant, because you could be creating a real big problem here. So I'm not sure how best to deal with that. I know John Carter's on, but if it was a Chick-fil-A, not that I'm against Chick-fil-A, but that would be a real traffic nightmare without redesigning how this is configured for a drive-through. So I'm not sure about that. I don't know if you want to respond to that, Brian or Howie.
And I think if you can correct me if not, but I recall in conversations with staff that the issue with turning this into an entrance only, and this is supposed to be an exit only southern entrance exit, is that this southern area isn't sufficient for emergency vehicles, and so we need to have, this is where emergency vehicles would enter and exit if there was ever a need. And so if this was only entrance, they wouldn't be able to circulate through that area.
Well, I'm sure if you need to do something for emergency vehicles, you could stripe it or do some kind of different curbing to to deal with that if you needed to. But I think it'd be a real problem if you had a big user here that requires lots of stacking. And it's already a bit of a challenge, as everyone knows. So be best to design it now to avoid that in the future. And I'm all for doing something here. This is great. I think you just have to tweak the design a little bit in regards to particularly the drive-through stacking. Are you and Tammy's right? You would have to go to DRB. You said you're not changing the building. Are you sort of refinishing the siding or painting or anything like that?
Yes, we would be doing that. I mean, we would sort of clean up the building, but it would stay in the same architectural design that's consistent with the center.
Sure.
The one change that may occur would be to remove the canopy piece. That we're not sure if that would stay or not, depending on who the tenant is. But otherwise, the building would stay the same and would be, cleaned up and repainted and maintained nicely.
Gotcha. Are you asking for a vote tonight?
I mean, we'd love a vote if you are all inclined to vote after seeing this presentation and our discussion. But if not, we understand.
So just to be clear, I'm personally would vote yes to redevelop this and to do something here and to do some kind of drive-through facility. But I do think it requires some further analysis to deal with the drive-through because of what I already talked about. So unfortunately, I would probably have to vote no tonight based on this design. But I am in support of doing something here. So just to be clear.
Thanks, John. Let's go on
Thank you.
to either David or Sue.
There we go.
Yeah. Given that it has been vacant and you've made efforts, certainly a change is welcome. But I would like to know if the neighborhood also welcomes change. A change from a drive-through bank, a change of use to a drive-through fast food restaurant can have a significant impact on a neighborhood. And you've made some efforts to try to bring a lot of pedestrians into this site as well. And so I would like to see you take the statement of justification here and also the slide presentation you've shown us tonight to the neighborhood, to the community here, and really, get their support. I would feel better about voting for your proposal if the neighborhood, especially the neighbors at Harbor Point and Lakeport Way, and also any neighbors that, would be impacted by the traffic here. And other impacts that a drive-through restaurant can have. So I would certainly not be ready to take a vote tonight. I would like to hear a report from the surrounding neighborhood. Also glad to hear that you're going to review this before DRB. I also would like to see a contribution to RA and also incorporate public art in the site. Did you have something?
Yes, just to add to what Sue said, a drive-through fast food restaurant that close to residential is a problem. Noise and clutter and traffic, as everybody has said, and South Lakes is, quite frankly, a fairly poorly designed traffic flow. Has a fairly poorly designed traffic flow. So I think you need to be sensitive to what Sue said. You need to make sure that you have talked extensively to, especially the neighbors just to the west and south of there, because they're going to hear the orders, and I'm not sure that's something that either they or you want. The other thing is the Truist Bank is up near the north of the entrance to the whole facility. I'm not sure why this is called BB&T Truist unless it was a SunTrust bank that is what BB&T and Truist, joined with SunTrust to form Truist. So in any event, actually a drive-through fast food restaurant would probably be better up where the current Truist, if it's still open, would be closer to the grocery store than here. But in any event, I think you need to engage the neighbors.
Thank you both for your comments. We've reached out to the Harbor Point community, which is the community directly adjacent to the pad. We've offered to meet with them. We sent them the application materials, and then we also let them know. This was about a year ago. We've also reached out again and let them know that we're meeting with you all, and we are welcome to meet with them individually or as a community to talk through the application. So we understand the importance of that outreach, and we'll continue to speak with them and get their perspective on this application because we understand how close that distance is and how it impacts them as well.
And
Yeah, David, to go back to your question, I mean, this was a BB&T and a True or the old former Truist, and the other Truist is closed, so both banks are vacant.
Okay.
Yeah, the unfortunate history is that we had BB&T and SunTrust who merged together to become Truist. We lost one with that merger, and now Truist is Southern.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Jason, you're just a little hard to hear, but I think we caught all that, so that was good. Let's go on to Bill Penniman, and then William Pegues.
Hi. So I'm going to build on the concerns about traffic. This is the shopping center where I do most of my or much of my grocery shopping, and you already, if you're coming from Safeway, you already have a backup to the light that often extends around that little strip where about 5 cars can fit. That's the only way really to make a left turn to go north. The exit down on the, we'll call it the south end, I think it's marked here as Harbor Court. Maybe that's a misreading of this map, but down there, it's fine if you leave the shopping center and turn right. I've never seen anybody turn left out of that location. Technically it's possible, but given traffic, I haven't seen it. So I'm pretty concerned that adding 122 or 70 or however many trips you're talking about would really cause a problem for a village center that's already got a lot of traffic issues. So I think you need to think through more about how that's going to be managed in order, at least for me to vote in favor of it. The second thing I would note is going to, again, some other people's comments. I would have concern about what kind of fast food you choose. We don't want what do they call them in Pennsylvania? A coal-fired pizza place because the coal smoke probably wouldn't be good for the neighborhood. A big heavy grease smell is probably not ideal for the neighborhood. Now, maybe if you convince all the neighbors that it's worth it, fine, but otherwise, but it is something I'd be sensitive to and see whether there's any kind of profit you can make that would limit, assure a limitation on the smells being emitted from the place. It's a small building, so I assume it'd be difficult to turn it into a walk up to and sit down place rather than a drive-through. Is that?
That's correct.
Reasonable guess?
Yeah, I mean, this building as it is without creating more square footage, it's not large enough for a walk up, sit down.
Well, then I really think you need to come back with some better description of how the traffic is going to be managed without making it a village center that's just not worth going to. Anyway, those are my comments at this point. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh.
Thank you, Bill. Let's go to William and then Richard Kennedy after that.
Okay, my comments are probably very much going to be limited to just the landscaping. I think I agree with everything else that everybody else has said. I'm also on the Reston Environmental Advisory Committee, and we have essentially been asked by the Board of Directors of RA to produce information to support not just Mid-Atlantic natives, but Virginia natives in any new development or redevelopment. So we're not looking at a situation where you're proposing invasives, because you're not, but we want to see in Reston, Virginia native plants. Doesn't have to be Fairfax County. They want to make sure that it is Virginia. And also limiting the amount of what you would call lawn or standard grass, as people call it. Either doing some other kinds of of grass that are natives. There are ones that are low. There's been comments in the past that, well, grass invites ticks because it's 4 feet tall, but not all grasses that are native to the area here are that tall. In fact, some are only 6 inches tall. So that's essentially my comment at this time.
Thank you, William. Let's go on to Richard, then Michelle.
Thank you. And I want to particularly congratulate all the people that have asked questions before. I think they were all good questions, and need some more thought without question. But one point I would make is if you're talking about a mainstream or a known entity that's a drive-through for the basic kinds of foods, you're barking up the wrong tree to say, I think that you're not going to need to, you're going to be able to keep the same physical place and just somehow drive it. I think that's not going to work. I think anyone is going to have to use that is known is going to want to use their picture, and they're not going to go for a bank, a building, and I can't even imagine the infrastructure in a bank building is similar to a drive-by food shop. So that's my comment, and I think it'd be helpful if you had a name to come through, and I think people would probably want to be supportive, but whoever you have could be significant design issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Let's go to Michelle and then back to David or Sue.
Thanks. So you said you didn't think a traffic study would be warranted. Is there a specific amount of additional traffic that would actually warrant one? Or
Yeah.
what's the basis for deciding against doing one?
So it's not that wasn't a decision from us. The basis of whether a traffic study is warranted is based on, or at least a VDOT traffic study is based on the threshold for 5,000 additional trips per day. So we don't hit that threshold. So there isn't a VDOT traffic study requirement. And given the nature of the use in the trip generation tabulations, the county has been focused on site circulation, and we've made changes to the site circulation over time as part of the county review process, and we've increased the stacking spaces, but the county did not require a separate county required traffic study.
Got it. So one of the problems with that area right there and near the Starbucks is that the stop sign for traffic that is coming in off of South Lakes and going in. So if you're going in below the site, right, south of the site, entering South Lakes and then going up towards Starbucks, the stop sign is not at the intersection where that pedestrian crosswalk is. It's like it's set back. So it creates a significant number of problems because people stop and then go, but you have traffic coming in from like over like where the CVS is and they stop, but it's just, that's a disaster. Are you moving that stop sign and fixing that? Because that's a current problem, which will only be made exponentially worse by any type of a drive-through situation.
So we hadn't looked at that. It's helpful to know that, but we hadn't contemplated moving or changing that stop sign.
Okay, without doing that, I mean, I don't see how this works at all because it's, again, just already causes a number of problems for pedestrians, cyclists, and people driving cars. So without that fixed, I don't see how this works. What are you doing with the other bank, and why wasn't that considered for the drive-through restaurant?
I don't know. Jason, do you want to address that? I don't know.
We just learned of the other bank vacating just a few months ago, whereas we've been in a process for this one.
Can you please turn up your sound? We can't hear you. Thank you.
Sorry, did you want to go ahead and answer?
Yeah, I'm trying to find my microphone issue, but I'm not finding it. So I guess I'm gonna have to lean in.
That's better.
It's
Yeah,
better.
That's better.
So unfortunately, we didn't find out about the Truist Bank leaving until the last few months, whereas we've been unfortunately vacant for this space for over 3 years and started the process on this drive-through probably a good year ago in planning. So that's the difference in the two. A lot of the points that are brought up about interior circulation of the center, if we were to make that a drive-through, it would make the stoplight and the drive-in area at the main drive-in unbearable. It would not work there either. The reason we focused here, and in all honesty, I live in Leesburg. I know the center very well. I own the center twice in my career now. So I had it in the early 2000s and now. So we know the center's downfall and issues with traffic circulation are the feedback we were getting from staff. One of the questions or comments was possibly bringing the circulation in from the north only and exiting from the south. Unfortunately, the stack of 11 cars doesn't fit to that. So you're already, by doing that change, creating what you're trying to avoid, which is spillage of the stack into other areas. Whereas this plan was the only plan that allowed for the stack to be maintained on the pad and on the site. So that was one of the items. And then there was another comment about exiting out to South Lakes. Just a reminder, we do not own the gas station, so we can't encroach into any of that area. So any additional exit would have to be on the site, which is already constrained. So that was also problematic. I think also you wouldn't be able to have that close of an additional traffic coming into the light that's at the main entrance. It will be too close.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like you're just trying to fit this in and make it work, but I don't think that you've addressed problems that we're already facing. And I appreciate that staff sees it on paper, But I think what you're hearing from us is we walk it, we ride our bikes through it, we grab our children's hands like we're going to lose them if they run too close to the road, you know? So I think there's still a number of problems. You're also, my next issue with traffic there too is you have the problem when you're exiting at the light, there's not a turn signal to go left. And so that backs everything up currently, and it just makes it a real hassle just to get out. And now, as you're adding more traffic coming in and leaving, again, without actually looking at the flow of traffic here in a more holistic fashion, I think this is going to create a whole host of problems that you're just not addressing yet. Is there anything that you can do about the light and the lack of a turn lane there?
Well, if I can just back up a little further, I think what Brian, I don't know if you want to fill in a little of these details, but it's not like we just came up with this plan and this is our first go at it. We've tried several different ways to come up with a plan that works for the site that also meets the needs and what we have to do physically to get the approvals. And so we've looked at 4 or 5 other ways that just didn't work either. So this was the one way that we got to the stack that's needed of 11, keeps it on the pad and on the site, and limits as much as we can the interruption to any other areas throughout. So in all honesty, we're at a point where we're trying to create the ability for us to cast a little bit bigger net to try and get somebody. We're almost 4 years vacant on this pad. We don't want to leave it vacant, but it's feeling like with the opposition that we're likely going to end up just having a vacant pad at the site because we can't get any interest from groups that just want to use it for a non-drive-through pad site.
I mean, I don't know what to say because I want to see South Lakes Village Center succeed, very, very much so. But you've just got so many significant problems currently that trying to do this is only going to make it worse. And it doesn't seem like you've addressed some of even the current problems. So, but I hear what you're saying, and I don't know what to say. I don't know if maybe the fix that's needed too is that, you know, you just can't cram that in there. And so is there something else that would require actually changing the building? But that's I don't know what to say other than I walk there almost every day. So I could, you know, this is something we know very closely. Um, um, let's see. My other question was, so right now it's an abandoned bank. When they vacated, did they remove the vault? Because it's my understanding that the vault is really tied to the structure of the building, and so it may require actual structural changes that would be more than just, you know, doing some light color changes to the building.
Yeah, the vault has been taken care of.
Okay, so the vault is gone.
Yep.
Okay. Um, let's see.
Can I jump in with one? I just Brian, what is the car stack on a bank use versus the food use? How many cars
I'll
are?
have to look up the bank use because it was the bank use had the double stack, but it was shorter. And to do single, to be, as you said, cast a wider net. We,
And I know
it was designed that way.
during
And we went
our
to 11.
multiple, and I know during multiple iterations of this, we looked at a double stack, and that didn't work. And I can't recall.
Yeah.
I'd have to check the notes, but
I think maybe if I may, it's not just that it might spill out. It's just people coming in and out and not having that stop sign pushed back where it doesn't make sense. It's just the sheer number of people who will be moving through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think we understand. I think the I guess what we're left with is a site that we're trying to figure out what use can be made of it,
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
And
yeah. Yeah. And we get that. I think the whole community would like to see something truly amazing there that we all want to go to and frequent and that it can be successful. So, this is by no means trying to stop progress. It's just there's just already too many current problems. Um, but that's something for you guys to think about and figure out, and hopefully you'll come back and give us more ideas. You know, uh, just changing it slightly, as a neighbor and a RA resident, I would say consider going to DRB sooner rather than waiting. We all have too many either personal or stories of friends who tried to wait until the last minute and then found out that a lot of changes had to be made. So I think always talking sooner is better. You know, I'll say I share the other viewpoint that tonight I don't think I could. I don't think it would be right to vote on this without hearing from Harbor Point Cluster. Is it Harbor Cluster? Harbor Point Cluster, right? This is just going to impact them so much. But it's not just them. We've got a number of neighbors nearby who really should, be able to have their voices heard or at least come to the table. Uh, so I would like to see that done. Additionally, you know, I really do want to see you guys succeed, but I don't think that a fast food restaurant is bringing us closer to the vision of what the village center and what a village center is supposed to be, especially not a fast food restaurant where you can't go in and sit down. We are literally just bringing people in and sending people out. This is supposed to be one of the key features of community building in Reston. And if we're just moving people in and out, we've just abandoned that vision and that dream. And I don't. I would like to see something better there that could bring the community get together as a one community. So that's just my personal issue with the notion of a fast food restaurant, especially one where you can't even sit down with your neighbor.
so understood, and I hear you. And so for what it's worth, we do have there's enough room inside to have some seating. It's not like it's not going to be a full service sit down restaurant. The space is not big enough for that. But there will be some seating inside, or at least there's an opportunity for some seating inside, whoever the ultimate tenant would be. And we've added areas as part of our modifications to the site layout to have outdoor tables as well. So we are trying. We've spruced up some of the green space out there as well, and so that was our way of trying to have some of what you're talking about, Michelle.
No, and I
Michelle, can I ask, do you think Starbucks is that kind of retail use that you're looking for
I think
for
that
the center?
I think that Starbucks there without the drive-through, I think you've got a big crowd of folks who are there every morning, getting together, talking about a lot of stuff. um, but I do think that that's offering some of that. But I think that the vision for the village center is more all-encompassing, not just one individual spot. Do you see? And then if this,
Yeah, I'm not trying to lead you with my question, but
yeah,
that's our we don't have a tenant signed up for the pad, but
yeah,
that's one of the strategies and vision we have when looking at this asset is the what ifs. What if we could move Starbucks to the pad because they now have a drive-through, because everywhere that they are signing leases, they have to have the drive-through capacity to
yeah,
keep them, or we might lose them. And that might be the vision for this. We just
yeah,
don't have that lease in hand,
yeah,
but we would need this approval to be able to approach them, to have that conversation, to try to sign them, keep that amenity. We view it as an amenity, the center, keep that amenity there, and then just have to backfill the end cap.
yeah. If we if we can actually make it, if you guys could come back with some additional pedestrian improvements so that people can get to that Starbucks or whatever it could be safely, I think that would be different. But I think it still goes back to just where I started. You've got those, original problems that quite frankly I'd like to see you fix regardless of if anything ever happens there, right?
Yeah, I hear you. We've looked at it, like, we don't own the gas station that's coming in and out of the traffic flow into that area. So we don't have the ability to cut them off per se to the interior flow. So we're just very handcuffed.
Yeah. I don't envy being in your position, but I can say, please do know, I really do. I'm personally would love to see something just be phenomenal. But that spot right there, and then also with those Starbucks parking spots, trying to get out of those is a sometimes impossible feat. If you've managed to get one and then get out with even a little bit of traffic currently, it can be challenging. So I would like to just see if you guys can't, see what else could be done.
Michelle, anything more?
No, that's it for me. Thank
Okay.
you.
So before we go back through the list of some of the people that have already spoken, I did get a couple comments from some other committee members who were not able to attend tonight. And the majority of them had the same concerns about traffic and flow. And Brian and Jason, while I understand there's not the traditional traffic study needed for a project like this, but I think what we're really talking about is just a better circulation plan, a better thought process to where pedestrian and vehicular traffic, how they're coming and going, not just to this little pad site, but really into the shopping center. So let me just mention a couple points as one of the resident civil engineers on the committee here. Yeah, the big problem with the South Lakes Twin Branches intersection, as Michelle mentioned, there is no left turn lane light. And so that becomes a bottleneck for the rest of the shopping center. The traffic backs up there because traffic doesn't freely it doesn't have the ability to freely get out of that interchange. To compound the problem, you have the old CG10A concrete apron there that causes a huge bump, and traffic always has to almost come to a complete stop just to get through the intersection. You have that same problem at the Harbor Court entrance and exit as well with the old entrance. And that's an easy fix to get rid of those old CG10As and put in a CG11, just asphalt and make it smooth. So these are just like little things that could really, really open up the circulation on the rest of the shopping center that then makes this type of use a better and allows for a better circulation. And I think your potential tenants would see the improvement pretty quickly. The other thing I just want to point out, the Harbor Court, the southern entrance to South Lakes Drive, as a very frequent user to the shopping center, I actually come out of that entrance and turn left because the other entrance is always a bottleneck. But it's difficult because that entrance is not wide enough to have a left turn, right turn, and an inbound lane. So that would be another potential, just slight improvement of just slight modification or widening of that entrance could go a long way to help with the circulation pattern. I think the bottom line you're going to hear from some of the committee members who are not here tonight, very supportive of getting a use in here that's viable, that's feasible, and that helps, with the shopping center and keeps the shopping center viable. But those of us who frequent this shopping center so often, we live with the problems every day and we see them every day, and we're giving you some advice as to things to think about as to how just some small improvements may be incorporated that could go a long way. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back to Bill Penniman, and then go back down the list here.
I didn't know my hand was still up. Sorry.
Oh, okay. David and Sue, do you have any other questions?
Sure. With the numerous questions about traffic and complexities of traffic patterns, I would think that the developer would welcome a traffic analysis by the county, even if, the traffic trips as you see it may not demand it. What I hear is a traffic analysis really is needed to make sure that there is a flow, the correct flow of traffic, and again, depending on the site. I also wonder, given you're asking for a special exception and a change from a bank drive-in to a fast food drive-through, I would think that a traffic analysis is required by staff. But again, you would know that. And secondly, I would really recommend following up on Michelle's suggestion about another similar but less intense drive-through use. So, certainly a coffee shop might be one. I'm thinking of Silver Diner. I don't live in this area, but I live in an area where Silver Diner went in. It doesn't have the heavy drive-through use, but it's a very welcome restaurant community. That's all.
And following on that, from your comment about you don't have a company that's signed on to this yet. With a special exception of this sort, what other uses could you put this to?
The special exception is to allow a drive-through restaurant. So it would be, any, and the reality is after the sort of redesign of the zoning ordinance provisions about drive-through and fast food and so on, that's essentially every food use that has a drive-through component. So that, like, a drive-through restaurant could be your typical fast food type place, or it could be a coffee shop. Like, those are both drive-through restaurants. So it's that flexibility that we're seeking the approval to be able to do.
I think a traffic analysis is needed, and also needed during the school year, not during the summer time when there's much less traffic.
Yeah, if we were going to do a traffic analysis, we'd obviously have to coordinate with Fairfax County DOT, and we'd do it in accordance with their requirements. And just to clarify, it would be done by a traffic consultant. The county wouldn't do the analysis themselves. Like, they would review it and coordinate with us on it, right? But
right. But getting back to my question, do you know if, because of the special exception, if it's required?
It's not required based on the special exception. It's required based on the number of trips that are generated by the proposed use, and the difference between the proposed use and the existing use. So the traffic studies are, the requirement to do a traffic study is based on the vehicle trip threshold.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to Katie. And then Tammy.
Thank you. Okay, so, yep. I wanted to circle back on what Rob said, and Rob, I forget, it was called a C something or other, the little bumps when you pull in.
Oh, yeah.
As a frequenter of this shopping center, even before waiting to do this, could you all just fix that? Because in reality, even if you have a green light when you're going left, going north on South Lakes, everybody goes so slow because, like, they don't want to bottom out their car on that spot at the main light.
Yeah, I was going to say, Howie, can you pull up and not the sheet of our site, like an overview sheet, and then try to zoom in? We're all talking about the intersection at Twin Branches where the light is.
And even the other one at Harbor Court, when you pull in, they are both like your body. If I drove a sports car, I would probably like really be doing underside damage to it because you're really going so low. Rob can probably better explain it in the engineering terms, but couldn't you guys just fix that sooner than later? Because that would help with traffic flow right now.
Yeah, those are old school entrances that VDOT has been trying to insist to get rid of.
They're
in
so
most
bad.
applications.
Yeah,
and it's just
honestly,
simply taking out the old concrete entrance and putting in smoother asphalt.
That
and
alone, Rob,
being
on a
done with
normal
them.
day, on a normal day now, can you imagine the difference in people getting out at that stoplight?
Right. Much faster.
Oh, it would be like enormous. And number two, I want to just tell you, I'm a frequenter of the Starbucks there. I've been hearing rumors that Starbucks was going to move over there for a couple years. So I think it would be great if they do, but I still really think if you guys could find an exit direct just to go south on South Lakes to not make people get back into that shopping center from your pad, like from your, I know you don't want to go to the gas station, but I mean, again, like, for those of us that kind of live on the south side, there's like the Domino's, and I don't know, the little shopping center where that, I wasn't, I think it was a former bank down on Soapstone that's just been empty for a long time. I don't want to see boarded up, empty, buildings in a shopping center or, the area where I live. So I would love for it to be redeveloped. But right, I could not vote on it right now with the traffic patterns because it would just be terrible, even if it was just going to be Starbucks moving over. Which, funny enough, I was like, I've been hearing rumors about that for a couple years. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Let's go on to David and Sue. Are you have your hand up, or is that a leftover? Let's go to Tammy and then Lynn Molston.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go rogue here and counter Michelle's comment about no drive-throughs. This shopping center has bukus go in and sit down restaurants. There's no reason why a well-planned drive-through that would serve a lot of need in the neighborhoods would not be welcomed and successful. One issue that should be mentioned, I believe, is this pad, the elevation of the pad and the existing South Lakes Drive, that there's quite an elevation change in a short time to get off the pad onto southbound South Lakes. I wish that could happen, that you could have an exit from the pad right onto southbound South Lakes only, no inbound. That would screw up your stacking. But an exit there so that people picking up their order could get out of the shopping center without going interior of it would be fantastic. And I would love to see a drive-through fast food. I think it's archaic that we don't have that opportunity at this shopping center. And the reason I mentioned Checkers is it is not a sit-down place. It's a walk-up. They have a counter for walk-up orders, and you could have that interior in a climate-controlled area and a drive-through. That's it. They don't have sit-down restaurant facilities. Thank you very much. I wish you much luck.
Thank you, Tammy. Let's go on to Lynn.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again. So in listening to the questions that have been put forth, and with all due respect to my colleagues about the use of this site, I'm interested, Brian and Jason, what process did you all go through to derive to the conclusion that a fast food facility would be advantageous for this? What other considerations did you give to this site?
We've been out there trying to lease it for about 3 years. So it's really based on supply and demand, who we're seeing in the marketplace, who's looking for the space, who's looking for this type of space. We've tried to look at soft goods. We've tried to look at medical. We've tried to look at all those uses, and we're coming up short. We're just not getting the interest. So it really has been a lot focused on hoping we can maintain Starbucks, in all honesty, because I'm afraid if we don't supply them a drive-through option, we're going to lose them at the center.
Okay, that's good
And
insight.
we don't have a lease with them, and I know it's been
Right.
rumored out there for years, but
Understood.
ultimately that's our hope and goal, because we need to keep them at the center. I think everybody likes them as an amenity. I think it helps the center, and it may be something different at the end of the day, but that's really where our head has been at in trying to
Understood.
achieve this.
I think that would be a great use if you're able to accomplish that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Tammy, I see your hand up. Is that an
No,
old one?
no. Yeah, sorry, it is an old one.
Oh, okay.
Does John Carter have anything to say? I'd love to hear what.
Well, before we go into John, let me just, I think,
Jared has his hand up also.
yeah, let me just ask the question, I mean, of Brian and Jason, really, I mean, if is it fair to say that, you know, if a certain user came in that had, you know, it was mentioned about Chick-fil-A. Now, Chick-fil-A seems to have a slightly different operating model. You know, they often operate now with 2 lanes of traffic, and I look at this site and think, you know, that likely they would have to do reconfiguration if this were to be something like a Chick-fil-A. Therefore, I would think you'd have to come back and maybe amend a special exception or whatever if you got approval, if they really came in and wanted to do something like they do at other places. So maybe knowing that, you know, there's a certain limitation that this layout will allow for, and then if someone else comes in with more intensive use, then that would have to be readdressed, right?
Yes, and I was thinking that earlier in the conversation, and frankly, you know, I think if there was an interest in Chick-fil-A in this location, they would be requiring us to make changes before they would commit to be here. Because I don't think that there's a way that we could accommodate, you know, what in addition to having great tasting chicken, they also have an amazing ability to get people through their sites quickly, and they have a design that they like, and it's not, you know, as you alluded to, it's not this, and this isn't quite enough for them. So I think frankly they would look at this and say we're going to pass because it's not going to work for us, or we would need, if they were looking at this, they would need some serious modifications that, given what we've heard tonight, which we certainly appreciate, we, you know, we understand we're trying to, you know, figure out a way to make this to sort of revitalize, I guess, in a way, this building that's been vacant, and make it work. And it's, you know, it's not easy. You know, I hear what you guys are saying, and it's not an easy location. And there's, you know, there's challenges with the site circulation. There's challenges with the village center as a whole. But we're trying to do the best we can to figure out something that could entice, whether it's Starbucks or somebody else, to want to be here. But, you know, to more directly answer your question, Rob, I think if it were a big, you know, sort of much heavier user like Chick-fil-A, they'd say this is not going to work for them, and we'd have to amend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to further that, Brian, we've been out there for 3 years trying to market it. They have shown no interest in this pad. So I don't think they're the ones we're looking at.
All right, let's go on to Jared as a comment.
So I guess I echo all the other concerns about traffic. I think that's the first reaction we all had. I'm very curious now about the more serious conversation around Starbucks, because looking at your calculations on morning and evening flow, if this were a Starbucks, would those calculations really hold true? I guess is my question. I think that's our concern, is we're all envisioning this worst case, 500 more cars moving in and out of this area where there's already a challenge. But if it's truly something like a Starbucks, I mean, are there different numbers for that? Or do you have to just always present these as base numbers based on county requirements?
Yeah, it's the latter, based on the methodology that's used for the traffic analysis, and those are that's not the full analysis. Obviously, that's just the trip generation comparison, but that's based on a category, and the category being a drive-through bank, and then a category being a drive-through food use.
Okay.
So they're not specific to any of the particular tenants. So an individual tenant could be more, could be less. That's just the numbers that the county uses and the traffic engineers use, because those are sort of the accepted numbers based on a category rather than a specific tenant.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that echoes our concern, is that, like you said, if it could be even more, I think it even exacerbates all the concerns that have already been expressed.
Yeah, one of the things that I mean, if we had sort of serious expressions of interest from tenants, again, whether that's Starbucks or otherwise, they have some of those numbers. I don't, obviously I don't know what those are off the top of my head. Those are internal numbers that they have. But if they're willing to share, I imagine they have some of that type of data.
I would say, I think that would be I think a lot easier for us to say, yes, we approve this idea, if we had sort of better numbers than the speculative, which can seem really high and go even more. That'd be great. But
Sure. Yeah, understood.
All right, Lynn Molston.
I just had one more comment. I mean, I know that I started by saying that, Chick-fil-A typically has 2 drive-through lanes, but I am reminded that the Chick-fil-A over at North Point does have just 1 drive-through, but there is ample parking across the main entry in the giant parking lot. So they do have a very large dine-in presence as well as the drive-through. So I don't want to dissuade you all from going to Chick-fil-A because there may not be traffic considerations for 2 lanes of drive-through, but the one at North Point is certainly worth studying. Thank you.
They have 2 lanes.
Not at North Point.
North Point has 2 lanes. There's 2 drive-ups. 2 people can be giving an order at the same time.
But 1 pickup.
They all have 1 pickup. Same with the one over by Target.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, so we've heard a lot of comments tonight. Brian, Howie, Jason, we really appreciate the application. Listen, I think what you really heard is we all want this shopping center to succeed. I said this earlier. We don't want to see vacant space. We really want this to be successful. I think it's just hard for us to envision, depending on the user, what type of traffic and the times of day that traffic would occur. And that's why I mentioned not a traffic study, but a circulation plan that can kind of identify some of those internal nuances and address them maybe a little bit better. And I'm not thinking anything super costly here. It's just more about spot improvements that can just make a tremendous help to the center, the circulation, which then would help the usability of any of these 2 pad sites that you now have vacant on the shopping center, for what that's worth. But it certainly sounds like, tell us where you are in the process, I guess, when you're going to be even getting close to a staff report or a planning commission hearing.
So at one point we were anticipating that we would have a planning commission meeting sometime in September. But it seems now that it's looking like that will be likely in October based on the most recent feedback we received from county staff. We actually don't know why they wanted to move the date back. Or maybe it's just scheduling overall and what's on the calendar. But we thought we were targeting September, and they've recently told us October.
Okay.
And by the way, to the point about sort of like a site circulation study, I actually think that's really what, from all of the questions and comments, it sounds to me like we need, of course, with our traffic engineer, but also more of a focus on the site circulation in and around the site. The typical traffic study, as many of you already know, is going to focus more on sort of intersection level of service and the impact on the road network as a whole, and really more sort of off-site outside of the shopping center and the impact on the road network outside of the shopping center. And I think, you know, it's possible that we could do that study, but I don't think that type of study is actually going to address the questions that you all have and produce the type of analysis that you're looking for. I think that Rob, to what you described, something that focuses on the circulation of the site and what's happening in and around this piece in the larger context of the site. And, you know, I don't know. I wish I had a great answer on like, oh, we could just come up with like another site circulation design that would work. Because if it was easy, we would have done that already. And we've tried multiple different iterations, but it doesn't mean that we aren't interested in seeing if there's improvements that we can make. So let us take a look at that. I think it probably would be a fruitful exercise for us to, you know, take the feedback that we received tonight, take a look at it, see if there's anything that can be done, and see if we can look at the circulation of the site as a whole, and see if there's anything else that we can do. I don't know. I don't. As we sit right here, I can't promise you that I've got like great answers. There's nothing up my sleeve. We're being very straightforward. We've tried different iterations. This is what we came up with. We hear you on the concerns, and we'll see if we can come up with anything better.
Yeah, Brian, that's certainly fair. And I think we're the ones that, again, that a lot of us just go to that shopping center, like you heard.
Yeah.
We live and breathe this almost. I bet I'm up there 5 times a week at least, if not more. So, and others almost every day. So,
And Rob, in the past, I've been told that I couldn't fix that concrete. So I'm definitely going to look into that, because I do have one of those sports cars that bottoms out when I'm driving through there. So that will be something I will be asking about tomorrow morning.
yeah, well, Jason, on other special exceptions that I'm working on, I'm getting VDOT to insist that we remove them on our projects. So I'm surprised that hasn't already come up. But then
Yeah.
again, you're not as directly related to those entrances as with the pad site as the shopping center in its entirety. So
Rob,
yes,
did Commissioner Carter also want to weigh in? Is he still with us?
yes, he is. John Carter.
Okay,
Thanks,
I've got
Michelle.
a couple. We need a pedestrian circulation resolution to that. There's been talk about sidewalk along South Lakes or not sidewalks, and then how you get actually into the site. I think the site is a little wide open, because we don't know really if the building is coming or going. We don't know if there's single stacks or double stacks. The site is tight and the circulation is difficult, and I can't imagine you go with the planning commission without a better knowledge of what the user is actually going to be. The other thing that I would suggest is, what about the other site? Why don't you bring them both in at the same time? I can't imagine a fast food restaurant wants to leave it quite so open without the other pad site resolved as well. That's vacant. That's the old Truist Bank. So seems to me it's a little wide open. The other thing that usually the commission wants to see you go to the DRB, at least a conceptual approval first before you come to the commission. So I don't know. I think it's awfully tight again, and I think without a user that this is problematic. And the only thing I different than I could offer is, why would you bring them both in at the same time and resolve this whole issue? That would resolve the traffic, I assume, issue as well. So I don't know. Those are comments rather than questions. So I just think you're a little wide open at this point to go to the planning commission.
Thank you,
Okay, Rob.
John. Yeah, thanks, John. Any other parting words from anybody on the committee? Brian, so we're not meeting in August, but we will be meeting in the remaining months of the year. So, you know, check back with us. Let us know when you want to come back, and if there's anything else we can do for you, please let us know.
Yeah, we certainly will. We'll see what we can do. We'll huddle up as a team, and we will certainly be in touch soon. But we appreciate all the feedback. It's certainly helpful for us in our planning. So again, we'll see what we can do, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yes, thank you everyone for your time.
All right, thanks, Jason. Thanks,
you.
Howie. We can let you guys go, and then as a committee, we do not have any other business tonight. Is there anything anybody on the committee wants to bring up before we adjourn? Lynn, was that a goodbye or just a?
I make a
No,
motion that we adjourn.
that was Brian had put his hand up, so I said bye to Brian.
What about, I have something.
Go ahead, Tammy.
What about the this afternoon's announcement in Patch that Comstock is locating a fresh market at Reston Station? That was a huge issue. This is, I believe, location east of Wheelie, diagonally across the intersection from the fire station, the intersection of Wheelie and Sunset. So that would be the southeast corner of that intersection. I believe that's the location. That was supposed to be the location of the grocery store that would serve all these thousands of residences coming in there. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Finally.
Yeah, they've been trying to get a vendor to go in there and finally did, I guess, get Fresh Market. So that's, to me, that's huge, because when Tall Oaks was eradicated, that was the promise that there would be a walkable grocery for all of that Tall Oak section, as well as the thousands of DUs that are going into Reston Station, as well as Isaac Newton. So to me, that was really amazing. So anyway, just wanted to mention that.
Thanks,
great.
thanks, Tammy. I hadn't heard that.
Rob, I make a motion that we adjourn.
All right.
I second.
I hear it. I'm sure everyone in favor.
I agree.
All right.
Good night.
Hey,
Good
thanks,
night,
everybody,
everybody.
and enjoy the rest of your summer. Let's
Thank
just
you,
hope it
Rob.
cools down a bit.
See you in September.
All right.